England had become a wasteland. And the idea of the Grail was, the Grail not only restored the wasteland, it restored the king. Because remember, the king, whether it was King Arthur or Bran or Anfortas or the Fisher King, there were different names and different stories. It was the same deal. He was sick, he was in decline, he was wounded, the wound wouldn't heal, he was debilitated, and the only way to restore him was to find the Grail, bring the Grail back, allow him to drink from the Grail, but the Grail was also the means of restoring the wasteland to fertility and fecundity. Now, here's where it gets interesting, is that the dendrochronologists who study tree rings have been looking at that period, exactly in that period that the tradition places the Grail quest, and have discovered that for about 8 or 10 years, forest growth in the northern hemisphere almost came to a screeching halt. And this has now been well documented. Mike Bailey has done most of this work, basically showing that there was a serious global cooling that took place during those years. And the historical record of that seems to confirm, because there's multiple descriptions, from Irish monks and so on, describing how for weeks at a time the sun is not visible, that its darkness has come over the land, that there were reports of these mysterious fogs, and then there are multiple collapses of agriculture. Okay, so as a result of these multi-year collapses of agriculture, because of the cold and the dark and the damp, people got malnourished, and then you had famine. As a result of famine, people, their immune systems became weakened, and then in 542 AD, you had the onset of the Justinian plague, which wiped out maybe a third of the population of Europe. Whole villages disappeared as a consequence. Wow. Now, these events pretty much followed in sequence. You see, the cold brought about the collapse of agriculture. The collapse of agriculture brought about famine. Famine brought about weakness. And as a result, boom, you have plague. Now, it took European civilization nearly 3 centuries to recover from that. Now, what brought about the recovery was the return of warmth to the world, what is called the medieval warm period.